Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel.
Today is a day that we've been looking forward to for a very long time this summer. We are going to be building an outdoor backyard sauna by Backcountry Recreation. We just arrived at the cottage yesterday and we thought what better place to set it up than right on the beach here. We've already unloaded it all down here. We have all the parts set up and we are going to get to assembling it, which honestly looks pretty easy for how complex these things look.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how long it takes us to put this together because it really looks like everything's just going to slide into place. So hopefully that's the case.
All right, let's get to the assembly. Step number one in the assembly process is getting yourself a nice square and level base. We have the bottom components right here. This is what the foundation is for the sauna. They recommend to have a solid ground foundation under the entire sauna, but since we're building it on the beach and it is very sandy and rocky, it makes for a very strong foundation. We've leveled off these areas and now we're gonna go ahead and square up the base, and then we're going to be able to start building from that. But it's really important that you have everything very square and very level because that's what the entire structure is going to be based off of. And if it's not, you might have some gaps or some issues when you're assembling it. The tools that you're going to need to construct the sauna are a measuring tape, a pencil, a utility knife, a screwdriver, a crescent wrench, a really good level, some WD-40, a skill saw, a mallet, a hammer, a drill, an impact, and I would also recommend some work gloves when you're putting the metal banding around the outside because it's very sharp, and also some ratchet straps and a Torx bit set. The Torx bits that they provide in the kit are very small, so I'd recommend picking up a set at your local hardware store. You're also going to need a ladder to work on the roof. Once you have your base perfectly square and level, you're going to start assembling the floor. The first piece is definitely the most critical. You're going to want to make sure that this is perfectly centered in the base before you start screwing on the rest of the floor pieces. The rear wall comes in 3 separate sections, which you're going to have to secure with the temporary 1x4. The front door section also comes with 4 pieces, which we needed to fasten together and secure with a 1x4. Be very careful when you're securing this 1x4 to the front window because you do not want to drill into the window and possibly crack it. They have precise measurements on their instructions, so make sure you follow those closely. Placing the end wall into the grooves on the floor was actually quite easy. It slid into place. Make sure that this is supported. We used some temporary pieces of wood just to help it stay in place in case a wind came up, and we made sure that this was perfectly center. We did the same with the front wall where the door goes, and it also slid into place quite easily, but it is very heavy with those windows, so be careful. You'll need to screw in 2 temporary pieces to the top of the back wall and the front wall to temporarily hold it in place while you work on each side wall. We have a front and a back. It is coming together, guys. It looks so good. The instructions are actually quite easy to follow and they're detailed enough that it is lining up perfectly. The next step is assembling the walls around the sides. This is a very time-consuming step, but be sure to take your time and hammer each one of those pieces in with a mallet and make sure they are nice and snug before screwing them into place. Once you get 3/4 of the way up, you actually only have to screw in every second piece. This does take some time. If you have a second set of tools and a couple more pairs of hands, this would really speed up the assembly process. Walls are going up really nice. We just had a break for lunch. It was starting to get pretty hot out too, so we needed to grab some water. But the walls are going up. Once you get so high, the instructions don't call for you to screw actually every piece. So you can do every second piece. We also removed the temporary boards that we had screwed to the base because those were only temporary. Now we can actually mount them up to the top. We have the roof to do, we have the door to do, and then we have the inside benches to do. But everything is going really well. I would make sure to pre-drill all the holes. That will eliminate the chance of one of these boards cracking, which you really want to avoid as much as possible. We've been drilling all the holes before we put screws in. last two pieces that you put in on the roof actually need to be cut right down the middle. So you cut part of the groove off and then you're going to line them up so they go snug in. After that is done, you're gonna work on the banding. So we actually have a ratchet strap going around the middle. That's one of the tools you're gonna need to purchase if you don't have ratchet straps. And then we're putting the banding around each side right now. And that is done by getting the two clamps, and each kit is going to say what the measurement is. For ours, it was about 150 that you want to measure back right about here. And then this measurement is about 240 millimeters where you're going to make this bend up. And then we're going to coat this with some WD-40 and snug this up. And what this will do is this will support the sauna from the outside. The metal banding is supposed to be installed on the outside of the bases, and it is meant to go over top of all the screw holes and cover them up. Kaylee and I accidentally installed it on the inside the first time around, but we did end up correcting this and moving it to the outside. This is actually easier because you don't have to feed the banding underneath the sauna. As you guys have probably noticed, we actually stained and sealed the components of the sauna that'll be facing the outside, like the base and the trim around the windows and the door. So we did that beforehand to make it a little bit easier on us. And we'd recommend doing that because it just adds a little bit of a cleaner finish and you don't have to worry about taping everything off when you go to stain your components. You can do whatever color you want though. We ended up going with a solid stain that should last about 10 years. If you want to do like a lighter stain, keep that wood a lighter finish, you can go ahead and do that. Whatever color you really want to go with, you can do. After we completed the banding, we removed the 1x4 temporary pieces that were supporting the inside end wall and the glass front door wall. We then started on assembling the benches. This was a really fun step because the inside was really coming together and this was also easy. It basically consisted of mounting the legs on the bench and then bringing them inside, making sure that the benches were level, the legs were level, and screwing them to the floor of the sauna. After the benches were in place, we installed the backrests on each side for the benches. This was also really easy. We did, however, test out the spacing to make sure it was comfortable for us, and we'd recommend that you guys do the same. Next up were the vents. There are two vents on the sauna. One is in the bottom right corner, and that is just a simple air vent. And then on the top left, there is an adjustable vent that you can actually close or open as much as you want, depending on how much airflow you would like inside the sauna. Since these holes were already pre-cut, it made the installation super easy. Next was the door, and we decided to bring this up to the cabin and work on it on the deck because we didn't want to assemble this on the sand. These measurements are really important, so we wanted to make sure they were as precise as possible. There are 1x1 pieces of wood that go all the way around the door, and that's how you're going to secure it to the rest of the frame. The way that they designed this actually made it really easy because if your door frame is off a little bit or not perfect, this will allow you to use a level and ensures that the door is going to open and close properly. We didn't have any issues at all, even though the gaps did appear to be a little uneven on each side. Installing the handle for the door was really straightforward. There was two bolts that you basically secure on either side, and the door actually stays closed by a magnet. The next step after the door was installed was to work on the footrests that go just at the bottom of the benches. These were also really straightforward to install. It consisted of just a few legs on the bottom and then screwing them to the legs of the benches. We brought in the floor piece, which was actually a little bit tricky since it is pretty much the entire length of the sauna and it's just a little awkward to install, but we got it in and screwed it in place so it was nice and centered inside the sauna. The fact that Backcountry Recreation actually pre-assembles the benches, the backrest, the footrest, and the floor make this build so much faster. Now that the benches and the footrest and the floor are all in place, we decided to mount the safety railing around where the heater goes. We might adjust this in the future since it did seem to stick out a lot, but it probably depends on which type of heater you go with. We went with the 9 kilowatt Huum drop heater, which is actually pretty small. They obviously do oversize this safety railing for the largest heater that they offer, so we might shrink this up. But it was really easy to screw together and mount to each side of the bench. After we got the safety railing all mounted inside, we decided to finish off the trim on the outside, which is also very straightforward, especially with the fact that we pre-stained it. The last two pieces that you are going to install on the outside edge of the trim, you are going to have to cut a little bit. I ended up shaving off just over an inch on either side. You do want to leave a tiny little bit of a gap here as they state in their instructions, so be sure to follow that. After the trim was done on the outside, we moved back inside the sauna to finish installing the heater. Now, this is going to differ obviously depending on what type of heater you go with, but the Huum Drop 9 kilowatt was really simple to install. You basically mount the back bracket to the wall. After we got the back plate mounted, there was a small reflector that went across the top of the heat shield that we mounted. And then that was placed on the back of the heater and the whole thing dropped into place on the bracket. The final step was installing all of the rocks, which was a little time consuming, but we were very careful not to get any rocks inside the middle of the heating elements because it's very important to allow airflow through these heating elements. Luckily, my brother-in-law is actually an electrician, so he was able to run the wiring and all of the breakers required. We would highly recommend hiring an electrician to install and wire all the heating and electrical components for the sauna because it's important that everything follow local electrical code. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions about this outdoor backyard sauna or backcountry recreation, feel free to leave a comment below. Like this video if you found it useful, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.